Born in Nigeria and raised in Ireland, he carries the richness of two worlds, a blend that shaped his worldview and deepened his sense of purpose. With a bachelor's and master's in economics, he is now pursuing a PhD, delving into the critical issues of migration and the labor market. His academic journey is more than just a pursuit of knowledge. It's a commitment to understanding the human story behind movement, opportunity, and dignity. Grounded in faith and driven by a desire to contribute meaningfully to the society, he sees his work as part of a greater calling to uplift lives and create lasting impact. Meet our next guest on Root and Route, Mustapha Kokumo.
Something I remember well from my childhood, I don't know if they do, but was, sometimes as a child you get really into something. So maybe I'm suddenly reading a lot of books now because I'm really interested in that, or watching a lot of documentaries or something. And then I felt they would always sort of pull me back and say, have you prayed? Have you read your Quran? And then some other times, I'll get very into this and I'm reading all the time the Quran, or learning or watching Islamic lectures and things. And then they would also be like, have you done your homework? Are you studying? I didn't really understand those things as a child because it felt like one day you're telling me go read the Quran, the next day you're telling me go read my book, which should I do?
So, what advice would you offer to parents who are struggling to bridge the gap between their cultural and religious expectation of their children experiences? You cannot touch on that a little bit earlier in terms of you guys being exposed to some things that the parents are not exposed to, but like, what advice would you give a parent who is at loggerheads with their kids? Be like, you're not listening, and the kids will be like, you're the one that's not understanding me. What would you say to a parent like that?
I would say being the parent. So I think sometimes parents feel because, especially our African parents, because of the seniority in age, it works in a sense like, an army or an organization that, the leader says what they say and those below fall in line and do exactly. And it's not always like that, especially with children growing up here.
Yeah. Are you married?
No, I'm not married.
I'm just asking for someone. Okay. Is this something you're thinking of, or is it something that you're kind of shelving it for some time in the future, or is it something you're actively thinking about now? Because I think people like you shouldn't be grabbed by someone else. You have to stay in the community, I guess. Assalamu alaikum, Mustafa.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It's so nice to have you here. We feel honored that you agreed to do this. So thank you for coming on the show.
No, thank you for having me.
It's lovely. You're always a pleasure to have, because even sometimes when we catch up in the masjid, you're always very pleasant to speak with, and you barely talk. And I'm gonna get you to talk today, Mustafa. So you better get ready.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, cool. So let's just get straight into it, Mustafa. So I know you, but just for the benefit of those who don't know you, and I know I don't know enough. So for the purpose of this conversation, do you want to share a bit about your upbringing and how your family's faith and culture shaped your identity as an individual?
Yes, so I was born in Nigeria. I moved to Ireland around when I was 6 years old. And then I grew up in inner city Dublin. So I guess there at that time, there wasn't so many migrants yet. So it was mostly Irish people. I went to school there. In terms of my family, they pushed me to do well in school. I went to a Quranic school as well. I think, like most children, at the start, I didn't really want to go. But as I grew older, I ended up enjoying it and wanting to go more. In terms of faith, they took me there, encouraged me to go, taught me stuff at home. In terms of culture as well, they brought me to some events, some Nigerian religious events and some just Nigerian events, and taught me also at home too.
You said at the time you came into Ireland, there isn't so much colored people, especially in your school. How do you deal with that? Was there any event that kind of, that won't just go away in your memory as part of your upbringing when you were here, and then it's just you were the only one looking like you? So was there anything that you remember that stuck with you?
Nothing really coming to mind because sometimes too, I always wish I remembered what I thought then because I find it must have been very strange going from a country, that's like 99% black people and moving to one
Yeah.
that was like 99% white people. And so I keep trying to remember, but I don't remember the initial period, what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think initially I remember most people were quite nice. I think in some cases I did see like a difference, mostly in, I guess in schooling, the way the teachers were, like, cultural differences. Then I think in some cases I did find that it was easier to be with other African people or other Muslim people, as I think they also had this sort of shared migrant background and tended to be nicer in some cases. But I think partly it was generally as a child growing up, because you're a new person, and the way kids are, like sometimes
Yeah.
if you're new and you're different, they don't respond well. But as soon as they get familiar with you and you're in the class more and stuff, then you become part of the big group.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm just kind of curious. But before the recording, we were having a conversation, and I was saying to you, like, back in school, I didn't get to the PhD thing, but we're always looking forward to dumb books. Like, I can't wait to do my final exam and just go make some
Yeah.
money. But I was having a conversation with you and be like, I'd like to read more books. So tell me, what's the inspiration? What inspired you to pursue a PhD, and what are the challenges have you faced as a young Muslims in academia?
So actually, I was similar to you. So I also remember, looking at these books when I was about to finish and being like, 2 more days, I can't wait. I'll never look at this again. I think initially I didn't know I would go in this path. I just wanted to go to university like most people. Then you get your degree and maybe do a master's, maybe not, and then you start working. But I found as I was in university, the assignments I enjoyed the most were mostly research assignments. I looked forward to them. I think mostly with assignments or deadlines, you're waiting till maybe sometimes the last minute and you're submitting, and as soon as it's done, you're happy. You can close all the tabs, close the computer. I enjoyed them. I liked reading over them, hearing feedback from the professors too. So then I realized maybe this is something I kind of enjoy doing. So then I did a master's in economics to see if it's something I truly enjoy. And I did, but it didn't fully give me the certainty I wanted. So I also did a research pre-doctoral program, just working as a research assistant with some professors. And then there I got to see, research firsthand, how they do things and how basically I would be doing things, learning from them and seeing if this is kind of the career I would like to pursue. So after doing that for a year, then I felt like, yes, this is something I enjoy. I think I want to at least try. And if it doesn't work out, then I do something else. But I felt like it was something I wanted to go into. And then in terms of the second question, I think what challenges have I faced as a young Muslim, right? Not really any so far, like in terms of the research part. I think most people are welcoming nowadays. So I think it hasn't really been a barrier. Maybe sometimes you have deadlines during Ramadan or things like this. But usually I think also the days are getting shorter now, so it's not really an issue. I think just sometimes adjusting, since my PhD is in Italy, adjusting to the culture there and finding a mosque there and all these things, which are external to the actual PhD itself, but maybe just pursuing this sort of path.
Yeah, yeah. What I heard about PhD is that it's really hard. Like, you had to read so many books, so many papers, and then you had to
Mhm.
probably publish your own papers as well and everything. So, how do you balance it, the demands of your studies and maintaining your Islamic faith? You just mentioned, you know, you used to live in Ireland, then you moved to Italy to study,
Mhm.
and you had to find your community. I mean, by your community, I mean the Muslim community. You have to practice and all that, and then you have your papers as well that you have to do. So how do you balance this pressure as an individual?
I think the balance can be difficult. So I tend to like having a routine, just something you can work off, because I feel like if you don't, it can become very overwhelming and you either do nothing or you're just in a mess. So in terms of Islamic lifestyle, I like having a routine. One of the reasons I chose this career is because of the freedom it gives you. So I think relative to most other careers, you can really choose your own timetable when you want to work, where you want to work from and these things. So actually, in that sense, it gives me a lot of freedom. On Fridays, for example, I can set away the time to go to Juma if I want, and it doesn't really harm anything. So yeah, having this routine or like these are the times I would read the Quran or these are the times I would go to pray and organizing things around that is relatively easy for me, I would say, compared to other people in other careers. But there are some very busy periods, and that's when it becomes very difficult. And I think most people struggle a bit with, time management, and it can be difficult to leave something and go do something else because you feel any time you're not spending on doing that thing you want to do, you're in a sense wasting time. So I think it's something I started understanding better and getting better at. Also noticing that anytime I took the breaks, sometimes I would take a break to go and pray or something, and then I would come back, and I would feel better. I would feel refreshed. Maybe there was something I really couldn't understand what was going on, and I start figuring it out. So I think it really helped, and it helped me realize that sometimes you can take these breaks and come back, and you're actually better than when you left. And at the end of the day, 5, 10 minutes doesn't really change so much at the end of the day. If anything, it can make you fresher and more productive.
Do you have a social life?
So I guess the nice thing about our department is it's under one roof basically. So you go in, you know, I think for most people they go in, you do your research for a bit, then people usually take a break, like a coffee break or something, you chat to people, and then you do work, and then we can have lunch together as there's one canteen, like, and everyone has lunch together, talk. And so that's sort of social life in work. And then outside of work, there's different sort of societies, like typical in universities that you can join, or different communities. Usually I play football or go to the gym, and then people also meet up to have dinner or visit a museum or something, or just walk around and talk. So yeah, I think generally that's my social life. Since it's in Italy and not in Ireland, it tends to revolve around the people in the university as we all speak English. Yeah, that at least at this stage, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I'm just kind of curious that if you do, because the challenges of your studies and your cellar and everything, and then do you even have time to say hello to people? It's kind of that kind of a thing. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Now, parental expectations. Would you say that your parental expectation, like what your parents expected of you, maybe it could be nonverbal sometimes, but sometimes, the way they're kind of concerned about your academic and, what they want for you, their dreams and aspirations about what they would love for you, has that in any way impacted your choices? Or is that the reason why you can't stop reading? Like, I cannot disappoint dad. I don't want to disappoint mom or you. What's
Mhm.
your motivation?
So I would say yes, to an extent, their expectations or even my upbringing from them, because I guess something I remember well from my childhood, I don't know if they do, but was, sometimes as a child you get really into something. So maybe I'm suddenly reading a lot of books now because I'm really interested in that, or watching a lot of documentaries or something. And then I felt they would always sort of pull me back and say, have you prayed? Have you read your Quran? Have you, just reminding me that, like, okay, it's good, you're very interested in reading and learning a lot, but also don't neglect this other aspect. And then some other times, I would get very into this and I'm reading all the time, the Quran, or learning or watching Islamic lectures and things. And then they would also be like, have you done your homework? Are you studying? And so always pulling me back to find a balance and not go too far in one end, like, and I felt I didn't really understand those things as a child because it felt like one day you're telling me go read the Quran, the next day you're telling me go read my book. Which one should I do? But I think I realized growing up or reflecting back on it that it was just to achieve this balance and, not lose sight of important things, either like academic stuff or Islamic things as well, or even like sports too. If I didn't want to go to football training or something like this, they'd also encourage me to go as well. So I feel like this aspect was important, at least in shaping me and feeling like these are the parts of my identity or personality and I can achieve balance in them. Maybe some cases I might go more in one way than the other, but I can always bring it back and try to even them out as much as I can.
Yeah. So, why I asked that question is that, see, that very thing you were saying as the foundation for the balance that you're trying to maintain now is the reason why a lot of youth are in different circumstance with their parents, like especially African parent. They don't know more than book. Like, you know, what would you say to someone who sees it from that perspective? Like, it's no fun to say they don't tell you go play ball sometimes. They tell you, what would you say to someone that is actually finding that as a means to then have a very strained relationship with their parents and say, look, they're just too much on me?
I would say it probably comes from both sides. So I think saying go and read your book is important because, also they know for your future welfare, like it's important. You have to do these exams to go to university, and having a career of some sort is also important, especially in today's world. But also, I would say with children, sometimes we don't understand these things. So I think it's nice to explain them like why it's important. So rather than just saying go and read your book or go and do this or that or don't do this, maybe give some reasoning or some examples, something that they can relate to and understand, oh, this is why it's good, or find a fun way or a rewarding way to encourage these behaviors. I think that's also important because I think at the end of the day, if you enjoy doing something, it's better than just doing it, out of coercion or feeling like you have to because your parents would just be angry with you. So I think trying to find a way, it probably starts from a young age too, like encouraging these behaviors in a young age and trying to find a way for them to be interested in it and also knowing the importance of it as well.
Okay, hypothetically, you're trying to encourage your child to say, look, the same way you were brought up, and he tells you or she tells you, no. I mean, there are a lot of people who are making thousands of euros or dollars from just doing some random stuff on TikTok. I want to be a YouTuber. I just want to play a game for a living. I mean, real problems. Like some youngsters don't even see any sense in going to school or spending any years, for that matter, in a university, like when other people is just doing what they like and they're making a lot of money. If you're a
Mhm.
parent, how would you talk to a child like that? Because that's one of the problem that the parents are facing. Like people wants to have fun and they see people having fun and they're making money off it, and you're telling me to go read book. Like, how does that kind of doesn't really? What would you say to a child like that?
So I think it's not an easy scenario because this happens also in this era with the digital, but also in other times too. Children would want to play football, for example, and you see these footballers and they're making a living from playing football. And so you feel like you can do it too, but at some stage, everyone realizes, oh, it's probably not going to work. Well, it's not that you don't try as well, right? So these children play football growing up, played a lot, and then eventually it doesn't work out and you move on. And I think a lot of boys and maybe some girls who grew up with this sort of thing with football or any other sport, as a child, maybe to understand that like some people do make a living from this, it's very few. So I think to some extent, maybe encouraging a balance, like you see how this is, you like making videos within some bounds, because I think shutting down one thing they like and pushing something that they don't want to do is probably going to be counterproductive. Either they'll find a way to do the thing that they like, or they just wouldn't really try. So if you maybe try to say, okay, this is the thing you like, I think it's very difficult. Very few people actually make it. This is a more stable way, but you can see for yourself and you can do this as a hobby first and see how it is. But it has to be with a balance, and you also have to do these things too, and they're also important. And then you can see, because there are cases of people. I knew a guy who studied at Trinity too. I think he liked photography. He was doing a science course, a pretty good course anyway, and he was really into photography, and his dad let him take a break for a year, and then actually it turned out he was really good, and now he's making a living from it. So it can happen. I think it's very rare. But I think if you force someone maybe not to do it, it might not really work out in the way you're hoping for the child.
Yeah. So if I hear you right, the communication and understanding and a bit of compromise is required. Is that what you're saying? Like, yes, do a little bit of what you want to do, and also can you give time to these as well, just in case this doesn't work out?
Yeah, I think so because I really see it as me playing football growing up, like I think if you ask most kids, at least then it's like, you want to be a footballer growing up, and maybe your parents think, it'd be great if you can. It probably won't happen, but they will never say don't play football anymore, just go to school. Like they'll say, okay, play, but these are the times you play. now you have exams, you focus on your exams. And I think it's a bit of the same thing. It feels different because it's maybe something we didn't grow up with or we're not used to. But if we're applying a similar logic, it might give the same outcome where most people do it. Some people will make it, some people won't. But you felt like you gave it your shot and you've been doing this other thing. And now that you've realized this isn't going to work, at least you've still tried in school. So I see it a bit of that way.
Yeah. And what you have said is perfect. That's the way it's supposed to be for people. But sometimes there are extremes on both ends. Like there are some parents who are just adamant, be like, it's my way or no way. You've spoken to that, like compromise. What about if that thing or that feeling or that kind of notion of no is coming from the kid? Because I heard some motivational talk that says you have to put all your egg in one basket. You don't have to have a plan B because if you have a plan B, that means you're not going to give plan A the whole of the effort that's required. What would you say to a kid like that?
I would say I think you're too young in a sense to do that because the older you get, the more maybe these things are true. But as a young person, you have so much time, you might not realize how much time you have, but it's really a lot of time that you have. And I know people used to say to me too when I was younger, and you feel like I go to school, I do all these things, I have no time. But as you get older, you really realize that actually you have less and less time. So it becomes more true as you get older and older that you have to pursue one thing, or the choices you made before really impact the things you can pursue now. And so if you've made the wrong choices before, you open less gates to yourself in the future. So it's better actually, I would say, to open as many gates as you can when you're young. I think when you're older, you're not going to be able to learn these new skills. It's going to be too late. Or it'll take you a lot of time to learn them. And so you'll just have less gates open to you. So I would see it in the reverse way. Like now is the time to have more eggs in the basket and pursue different things. And then see what the future brings.
Fantastic. There's no better way to say thank you. So, what's the end goal here for you, Mustapha? Like, you're studying all these papers. What exactly are you planning on becoming after PhD?
Mhm.
Because I know you're not going to go far away from books, Mustapha. I know.
So initially, you have a doctor of philosophy. So like this is the PhD. So you're basically a doctor in this subject, someone very well versed in this particular area. And then from there, you can go anywhere you want. You can stay in academia, so become a professor. You can work with companies or with organizations or NGOs. I think probably I will apply a bit of what I said earlier and keep the door open for a lot of these things and see which one I enjoy the most, which one fits well with my lifestyle, and which one I can do and accepts me as well. So I would hope maybe to continue as a researcher in some way, maybe at a university or an organization.
Thank you for not making me wrong because I know you'll find a way to stay close to the books. You want to become a researcher, so that means you love books, Mustafa. But look, it's all good as long as it makes you happy. But if I may ask, have you ever experienced moments of cultural disconnect with your parent? If yes, how did you navigate the situation? Like, you know what I mean by cultural disconnect?
Yeah,
Like,
so maybe I see things a certain way and
yeah,
they've
yeah.
seen things
And so
differently.
this is we're Africans, we're Nigerians. This is how it's supposed to be done,
Mhm.
and this is how we do it. And they're like, no, this is not how we do it. Like, have you experienced something like that before?
No, I think actually my parents have been understanding a lot. Because also I think maybe my path isn't very conventional too, because I think most immigrant parents would want their child to choose, especially first generation, would want their child to choose, maybe more of a STEM subject, like become a doctor or an engineer or something. And, once you finish, there's an exact job you're going to get and the pay is going to be good and everything is fine after that. So I wanted to do economics, which is social science. So it's a bit different. And I think amongst the social sciences, it's maybe the closest to STEM in the sense that you can also find the direct job afterwards and it's well paid. But I think they were also supportive of this and okay, this is what I enjoy and I can do it. And then also similar with pursuing the PhD, it's not the case that once you do one, afterwards you'll be richer than someone who didn't do a PhD. I think usually the studies show actually the people who enter the job market, maybe after the master's or the bachelor's, earn more than the people who do the PhD. So it's not really the path you would take to riches, let's say. So I think they've been understanding of that too and understand this is what I enjoy and what I want to do and pursue. So I think there was maybe the biggest opportunity for cultural disconnect because I feel like maybe Western parents tend to be more understanding of, especially middle class ones, of these alternative career paths. But yeah, I think generally, yes, I think they've been understanding. Even with me moving and going to study something else abroad in a different country too, they've been helpful and supportive with it.
I agree, honestly, because what you just said there, that money isn't the motivation, a typical African parent want their kids to go where the money is. And they'd be like, no, I'm following my passion. I'd be like, if your passion is not bringing money, what are you talking about? you know? Yeah, but that's really good. So, professional growth and your Dane, in your experience, how can young Muslims integrate professional ambition with staying true to their faith? And I tell you why I ask this. It is common, like, especially, it's easy for you as a young man to say, look, I don't appear Islamic, the way Islam has been perceived in the West. So it's not as challenging as it is for a young man to practice deen and just kind of go about your ways without calling attention. But it's not the same for the ladies. So how do you think these two can be merged, especially for ladies? How do you think this can enhance your professional growth without leaving the deen? How do you think that can help? Like, is it a
Mhm.
barrier at such in any way?
Yeah, I think it's important not to see them as competing, but maybe complementary. We know that we're taught in Sahih Muslim that in whatever you do, try to be the best at it. We also see that work can be a form of worship too. Actually, if you're doing something earnest and good and beneficial for people, it can be a good thing as well. So pursuing your career doesn't have to be, you don't have to see it as you're taking away from your religion. You can see it as, in a sense, you're bringing an additional aspect or adding to it. But also, I think it's important to understand that there's different ways to see, success as well. Like you can see it as, how much money you make, or you can see it as whether you're happy, you're helping people. And I think trying to see it in a way that's Islamically compatible and also stable is good. Trying to pursue too much money, I think, can lead you to the wrong sort of direction. But also, I think maybe trying to achieve balance as well in your religion. So having a sort of routine, these things you do regularly, even when things are difficult, times are tough, maybe you're really busy, it's really hard to pray or it's really hard to do these things. Like, don't say, okay, that's it, I give up, it's done. Maybe it's not going to be perfect for a month or two, but always try to come back. So I think realizing you don't have to give up. And in terms of maybe outward appearance or how people perceive you, I think maybe taking small steps. So like do something small, like maybe you take a break to pray, and then gradually you'll feel more comfortable opening up and doing bigger things and showing who you are. And also understanding that the parts of you that make you different and unique don't have to inhibit you as well. They can also give you an advantage. There's things from your background that you know and understand that other people don't know, and you can try to use that to find some sort of advantage as well.
So what you're saying there is that being a Muslim and being an obvious Muslim is not a barrier to professional success.
Yes, you don't have to see it that way. I do think in some cases it can be difficult. Of course, maybe some industries don't want you to wear the hijab. I think generally nowadays it's not typically so much of an issue in many Western countries, although it might change at some point. We don't know. But yeah, I think typically it doesn't have to be a barrier. You can also find somewhere someone accepts you because I think you don't always have to see everything from their side. They have to choose you, they have to accept you. You also have to choose and accept them too. And by them not choosing you, they're also losing something too, right? So I think go where also you feel comfortable and you're accepted as well.
That's a very good one. don't just expect them to accept you, you need to accept them as well. That's a very
Yes.
good one. So, community and support. Have you found support amongst the Muslim community in your academic journey? Like, you talked about you looking for masjid in Italy and all that. Is there a thriving community? Let's start from Ireland here. Do you have that community support in your career? And then if you do, what do they do for you? And how do you think that should be replicated? Because I feel like, and I may be wrong, that we need more of that. Yes, we need to teach the Quran. We need to let people be conscious of Allah. But we're living a life as well. We cannot close our eyes to the fact that this is a life we're living and people are doing things outside masjid. So, how has that been a value avenue for you in terms of your career growth? Do you enjoy anything from the community as far as your career growth is concerned?
So the Quran school I went to, I had a teacher there who happened to go to the same school as me, like a couple of years earlier, same secondary school as me. So actually, he was very helpful. Like he was also like religious, but also like cared about education because I feel sometimes you can find people who are religious and don't care about education at all. You can find people who care all about education and not religion. And so it was nice seeing someone a bit older than me that had the kind of balance and seemed happy. And so I think he was very helpful and, he helped me with some school stuff too. And I think that was important. Also, there, like we did things too, like so we had our Quran school, but we also, had barbecues or had days we played football together and these sort of things. Then when I went to university, I joined the Islamic Society there, and also there, we had the religious events, but we also had, fun events as well. Every Friday after Jummah, we'd go somewhere to eat together, and so there was like a sort of community aspect and we're all similarly minded people, maybe career wise, but also it was nice to be amongst people who are Muslim too and do things together. And pursuing the PhD was a bit different because now I'm in a different country and I don't speak the language there, so I didn't grow up with the Muslim community there, so it was quite different. So there was a bit more difficult because now I'm alone and in my department I think maybe there's one or two other people that are Muslim and there's no other African people that are permanently there. So then it becomes quite different where I don't see the sense of community anymore. So then I do appreciate when I come back and I see people in the masjid and people like you and they're happy to see me and saying, how are you? How are things going? And so it makes me also feel, in a sense, that people understand what I'm doing and they're being kind about it and understanding. I think also missing these things in Italy as well makes you appreciate them more and understand like their value too. Because I feel generally as you get older, you tend to understand the value in these things.
Do you think there is enough of those type of people you mentioned, the people that understand that the deen is important, the career is also important, like not tilting too much on one side to say it's just deen and then nothing about dunya, or it's just dunya, it's nothing about the deen. Like, do you think we have enough of people like that in our community here in Ireland to guide the youngsters to say, look, yes, you can become whatever you want to become, but look, the din is also important, because if we don't do it, they will find the motivation somewhere and do it, and then they will follow where or the lifestyle of those who motivated them. That's my thinking. I am not in that age category to kind of be in the know of what is really happening, but in your sense, do you think there is enough of those people to guide people from both perspectives?
So in my experience, I've met a lot of these kind of people who see the balance. It could also be in a sense that I chose the type of people I wanted to be around and friends with. And they were like this. I have seen some people on both extremes as well. So I think there's all sorts of people. I can't say how much we have, but I think it would always be good to have more in a sense and for people to understand and realize both can be important. Our African background, especially conservative African parents, generally they will always push you to do well in school, but also because they're this conservative type, they'll always go to the mosque, or if they're Christian, go to the church. And so then they'll encourage the religious aspect too. So I do think for most people it's there. I think how it manifests maybe differs. So I think saying today's Friday, let's go to the mosque, or today's Sunday, let's go to the church, is sort of different to actually encouraging Islamic knowledge and learning about Islam. And again, saying go read your book is very different to, really learning and becoming studious and, enjoying acquiring knowledge. So I think from what I've seen, at least with our community, it seems a lot of parents do see both aspects. Maybe how they push their children towards them isn't consistent or isn't in the best way, but I think maybe a lot of them see like the importance in it.
What do you think can be done in terms of the consistency?
Maybe just understanding. I think maybe an issue here is also generational, but also maybe like geographical. So, a lot of our parents grew up in Nigeria. So in a very different time. So even with Westerners nowadays, they also find quite a big gap between them and their children or their grandchildren because of how quickly things are changing, especially because of technology. So then if you throw in also geographical differences as well, growing up in a Western country versus an African country, these things affect people's understanding on both sides. So your children have things they find interesting or things they want to pursue, and for you, it doesn't make sense, or you are raised a certain way, but also the way you are raised was influenced by your context, and so it's also important to try understand their context, things that motivate them, things they want to pursue. And then I think maybe in trying to understand them and, talking about it, it can help to, achieve this sort of consistency in how you should do things. But also I think from the children's side too, it's, very important to listen, also be patient. I think it's not easy to understand things you don't experience. So, parents growing up in a different place, not experiencing the things we experience growing up, the differences. Also with parents, then they tend to make friends that are also African and stick in this community. So in a sense, you're always in this sort of African, Muslim, Christian bubble. So you don't see things we see, or you aren't exposed to other aspects of life we are. So I think being patient and understanding they don't understand these things, the parents don't understand these things because they didn't grow up that way, but also understanding the children don't understand the things you're saying fully because they're not growing up that way currently as well, is important.
Why is Islam important to you?
To me, I think I feel like it gives meaning to my life. So otherwise, I feel like there's almost no purpose in doing anything we're doing. So for me, I think it's really important in giving that purpose. So giving me the understanding that, this isn't whatever bad thing happens, it's not the end of the world. Like things can always be worse. And understanding that the good things that happen, yes, I put some effort and it came from me, but there was so many other factors that weren't in my control too. And I really think these things are important, to having stability, balance in life. So really for me, it's about the meaning in life. Without it, I would feel there's no real sense in pursuing any.
What do you say to your friend? Hypothetically, who says those things you actually say you get from Islam, I actually get it from music as well. So why do I need Islam?
I would say it's possible to get some aspect of those things from other things, but I think, in a sense, everything else, like one of the main things with Islam. So if you believe in Allah or God and a creator, then you understand that like this is from sort of an infallible objective source, right? So saying you derive these other things from human-based sources can be problematic, but then you find out, oh, they did something really bad. Do you keep listening to them? Do you stop listening to them? And now can you really find motivation anymore? But, having something like Islam that's been here for 1,400 years and people are still believing in it and still holding strong to it, I think is important because it shows you like you can derive meaning from this thing and still be successful. There's many successful Muslims in history, and I feel deriving it from some other, maybe non-objective source or some temporal source that changes over time can be problematic as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And I thank you because what I really wanted to hear is probably what you mentioned around finding meaning in things that can change. Because so many times I hear people say, look, if I want to become a doctor, I don't have to read the Quran. And what's going to make me happy is becoming a doctor and having a lot of money and then having nice houses and cars. So why do I need the Quran? So people like that who find meaning in things that can change, then are setting themselves up for some ups and downs. That's what I take from your definition of having a stable source of motivation that doesn't change. Like, having that stable connect with one source that doesn't change is the motivation.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I think really letting people be the source of your happiness can be good, but also, it comes with the fact that people aren't perfect. They fluctuate too, and whatever happens to them will then, also affect you. And I think it's better generally maybe to find something more stable, something you feel like is really the truth and is infallible, and from there really getting this sort of anchor or source of motivation.
Yeah, we've been brainwashed to think that when you have the money and you have the career, then you are set. But then you find out these people who have millions of whatever currency in their account are still sleeping with pills every night. Well, we all have these ups and downs. And I just want to get to the bottom of your perception, or why do you continue to be a Muslim? A lot of people of your age, a lot of your set that probably you graduated with are probably working in some corporation now, but you stuck with what you like, what you wanted, and then you stick with it. There's something that's driving you. And if people are actually, able to identify that kind of a drive and then know that there is a source that is unchanging that can actually piece some details together that will generally help you achieve some things, then it will make a lot of sense, because people get confused easily. Because when you are saying you're Muslim and then you're successful because you have connection with Allah, you pray to Allah, and then you see a Mr. X who is an atheist and then who's also living that same life, how do you connect the dots as a Muslim to say, like, he has what you have, so what's the difference?
Yeah, I think it's also really how you see success, like you can see it as money. So if someone has more money, so, they're successful, or, you know, they spent all this time studying and you were praying, but they got a better grade than you. And so, what's going on here? So, yeah, I think it's something maybe a lot of people struggle with at some point and then end up realizing that, oh, it's actually really how I'm seeing this. Like, is it necessarily the case that what I see from this person is, one, really how they are? Because especially with social media, you can choose what you show to people. And two, also, is it what really, you know, is what success is? Is it really what is happiness is? There's a lot of examples, especially in the Quran, of people being wealthy. I think in, for example, Surah Al-Kahf, like someone having riches and a big garden with plentiful crops and thinking it's from himself, and, he's successful, he's done well. While someone can be poor and understand that, no, actually it's all from God, and what you have doesn't necessarily mean you're successful. So I think you would find like even a lot of these people can be very unhappy and, would give it up, like you can sometimes see when they ask a lot of these celebrities, how does it feel being famous? A lot of them do say they would give it up, like the little freedoms we have that we don't understand, just being able to walk down the street and go to a shop or something and no one knows you, having your personal life and people aren't trying to find out what's going on, and, are you fighting with this person? Are you going to this place? Like all these little things, I think we actually don't understand it's a lot to give up. It's really also success having still having them, like still just being able to be yourself and not worry about the consequences sometimes.
What is success to you?
To me, I would say I would be happy or feel successful if I feel like with my religion, I'm, you know, doing the best I can do, like, really being up there, and also career-wise as well. So I feel like it doesn't have to be sort of the output, but I'm doing what I think is useful, helpful, and I'm enjoying it too.
Who have been your role model? I mean, who have been sort of inspirations in balancing your faith, culture, and your ambition?
I think maybe I've had sources of inspiration, growing up, like, seeing someone maybe from a similar background doing what you're doing or doing something not too dissimilar and seeing like, oh, if they can do it, maybe I can do it as well. Like, for example, learning about the Islamic Golden Age in Spain or something and all these Muslim scientists and philosophers and polymaths and throughout history, like their contribution and seeing like, oh, they were very well versed in Islamic knowledge, but also non-Islamic knowledge as well. And you can pursue both still. Also, I think just maybe seeing some African people in non-STEM fields, like, for example, that won the Nobel Prize in Literature, like doing well. And you see like also, you know, he's different. He's from a different place to maybe typical winners, but you have a voice too, and you can give your unique perspective on things. So I would say really no one in particular, but maybe things I read and things I see of people, especially growing up, made me feel like not really restricted in my choice, because I think maybe going back to what we were discussing earlier,
Yeah.
but feeling like my background doesn't have to inhibit me, but it can enhance and also support me.
Good, good. So, what advice would you give to young Muslims who feel torn between adhering to Islamic practices and fitting into the modern professional environment? Like, you're there, you're a PhD candidate. I mean, it doesn't get higher than that. Like, so what advice would you give to someone who feel I can't really be this serious with my academics or with my career and still doing this Quran thing and doing this Hadith thing? Like, I mean, what would you say? I mean, we've had professors in Islam, big, elderly people who have done this, but we may not relate because we're young. I'd be like, oh, maybe things are not the way it used to be when they were studying, but you're like there right now. What would you say to your peer who is saying, look, if you want to be successful professionally, how can I go about it?
Yeah, I think that they don't have to be competing forces, like you can see them as complementing forces. So a lot of times actually, I would be learning something about Islam. Maybe I stumble upon something maybe slightly not related to Islam, but because I was learning about this, now I'm doing something completely unrelated, maybe in my research or something, and it comes to mind. I remember, oh, I read this thing, or oh, maybe I get an additional insight because of, this extra thing that I know. So these things can always be there. I think sometimes learning Islamic knowledge, it's still under maybe the broad category of knowledge in general. So you don't have to see it as just because you learn Islamic knowledge, it will benefit you in some way. There will always be some insight you can take from here and bring to other places. But also then you as a person and as an individual, because after you, complete your degree, you'll want the next thing, which is, a nice job. You get your nice job, you want to progress and be promoted, you get that. And so when will the desire stop? When will you actually be happy with what you have? And so I think having this religious aspect as well can help you realize that this isn't all it has to be. Like you don't have to just keep progressing career wise. And once you do, it's the next thing and it's the next thing. You can draw your happiness from other things, other aspects of life, especially community aspects that we have, or just even prayer, for example, the gratitude and the reflection as well. All these things are also important. And I think really it always comes down to how you see what success is.
Yeah, I mean that's key. Like If you're clear on what success is, then it doesn't really matter what other people are doing or what other people are chasing. Like you're clear on your direction, and then it kind of settles you in a way because when other people are running, you already kind of your path is kind of clear to you in a way, and then
Mhm.
you're moving at your own pace because you exactly know what you're chasing in a way.
Yes, I think just on the general point, I agree. I think really a lot of these things, it's not always easy to realize, especially with this aspect. I think sometimes you feel you're doing this thing, you really want to do well in it, you want to give it all your energy, and so you neglect other aspects of life. But I think actually, once you achieve this thing, you're not necessarily going to be happy. Like humans really are sort of built in a way where the happiness we derive is usually in pursuing something rather than the attainment of that thing. And I think in a big part, our religion encompasses this aspect in the sense that you're always pursuing the afterlife and attaining the afterlife. You'll never achieve it in this life, but you're always trying to be better. And I think even scientifically, like in neuroscience, this is what they find that humans derive motivation and pleasure from. It's really pursuing things. And so with our religion, that's what we're constantly doing, pursuing and trying to improve and trying to be better. And in doing that, you have this sort of stable happiness in a way and vision of success. And if things are bad today, they don't have to be bad and you don't have to give up. If it's hard to find the balance now, it doesn't have to be the end. You don't have to say, okay, I'm stopping. You try and you don't give up and you strive. And the same you would do in your non-Islamic life. If you apply for this job, they said no, you wouldn't necessarily get it. Now you try again, and it's the same thing here. You keep trying, and it's a progression thing. Like eventually, you'll get there.
Yeah. You're always, cool, calm, and collected. Are you always like this? Walk me through an event or something that kind of throw you off balance. How do you navigate that? Because whenever I see you, you're always cool. Are you always like this, or do you have your moment as well? How do you deal with it?
No, my friends say the same thing, so I think it's it's me generally. No, I think maybe some of it is part of my personality, but I think I like to think ahead a lot as well. So I think it helps being able to anticipate things. And when you see them happen, you're not too surprised or flustered because, in a sense, like you've anticipated some possibility of this or that happening. I don't know if any time really comes to mind where it's been chaotic. I think maybe busy periods are more chaotic in the sense that I'm not as structured or as well planned and stuff. But yeah, generally, I think I like to sort of stay at a stable baseline. I think it just helps me emotionally because I feel like if I go either side of being super happy and hyper or sad and depressed or something, then I feel very sort of drained, like without the energy to do other things. So I think being sort of in the middle, like the middle path is what we should always pursue. It's how I try to see things.
I feel like people who are on the opposite of your perspective to life might look like, oh, boring. Do you have fun? You play football, you do all that. Is that the fun you have, or do you have any other thing? Like, because you mentioned earlier that you are intentional about the people you choose to hang out with, you know. So those people influencing you, or you are the one influencing them? I'm trying to get to the root of what drives this calmness.
I'm not too sure of the answer. I think in terms of who I choose to be friends with, I think I'm open to everyone generally. I think naturally you gravitate towards some people. Maybe sometimes you can't really explain it. It's just you get on well or you find a connection. And I think then it goes both ways. So I influence some of them and they influence some of me. But yes, generally I think, I don't know, I think maybe people I know aren't entirely like me, but I don't think they're very far away, as well. So it's, yeah, I think, yeah, maybe in a sense, the people I gravitate towards have a similar personality or outlook. In terms of what I do for fun, I do find a lot of fun in learning. So, especially doing a PhD, I think you need to enjoy
That's your
this
fun
because
doing PhD.
yeah, I know. I mean, otherwise there would be no point really in doing it if you because you're really choosing to continue with school, which most people want to stop at some point. So you have to enjoy it to some extent. Then I think outside of that, just general discussions with my friends, and I enjoy sports a lot too. So I think if you talk to most people, maybe that's when you see me most chaotic or something, because then I'm really having fun as well.
So, what advice would you offer to parents who are struggling to bridge the gap between their cultural and religious expectation of their children experiences? You cannot touch on that a little bit earlier in terms of, you guys being exposed to some things that the parents are not exposed to, but like, what advice would you give a parent who is at loggerheads with their kids, be like, you're not listening, and the kids be like, you're the one that's not understanding me? What would you say to a parent like that?
I would say being the parent. So I think sometimes parents feel because, especially our African parents, because of the seniority in age, it works in a sense like, an army or an organization that, the leader says what they say and those below fall in line and do exactly. And it's not always like that, especially with children growing up here. They can also be a bit rebellious or confrontational and also have their opinion or really not understand what you're saying. So they react in the way that they react. So I think being the elder person, they should obviously respect you, but also then you have more sort of knowledge or rationality or calmness than they do. So I think you should use that to your advantage as well. So don't, respond with your aggression with more aggression or something, but try to bring things to a middle ground and say, okay, I understand what you're saying, or try really to understand what you're saying. Maybe let them show you how they do things like, okay, this is what you want to do, or this is what you like doing or enjoy. Okay, let me see what it's like. So you actually understand where they're coming from. And then tell them, okay, I've seen your side. Now, can you see my side? And try from there. So try really to understand and discuss rather than shout or threat or order.
Look, it's really a lot to learn or to take in for African parents, given the way we were brought up. We don't ask questions. It's just like go do it and then you go do it. And then it's a
Yeah.
bit kind of alien to your mentality as an African parent to say a child asking you why, daddy, why, or mommy, why do I have to do it? But like, are you serious right now? Go do it. Yeah, so I think it takes a bit of humbling ourselves to really see these people and respect their opinion and then have a dialogue. I think that's the gap there. We're not used to dialoguing, which is hear and obey. But that's how we were
Yes.
brought up, and that's really difficult amending to as a parent here in diaspora. So, future aspirations, Mustafa, how do you see yourself contributing to your community and inspiring others once you complete your PhD?
So I hope with my research it will be useful for people generally. Also, I feel things like this, so talking with people, sharing my perspective, my story as well. I hope that will inspire at least one person. And I think giving back is very important, like letting people know what you've learned. So yeah, I think doing things like this is very helpful too. And hopefully I can do things like this too, and also do beneficial research or be involved with people who can make a difference.
Yeah. Are you married?
No, I'm not married.
I'm just asking for someone. Okay. Is this something you're thinking of, or is it something that you're kind of shelving it for some time in the future, or is it something you're actively thinking about now? Because I think people like you shouldn't be grabbed by someone else. You have to stay in the community, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's something I'm thinking of. I think now would be a difficult time because of where I live. So whoever, would have to come to a non-English speaking country and okay, I have my friends because of where I work, but I think it's really hard to, make friends generally there. So I think it's probably something for afterwards once I'm finished,
Yeah.
inshallah. So yeah, but yes, it's on the cards for the future.
All right. So that's good. So, all right. We'll keep your note on that in the community. So, all right. So, what message would you have for young? You've given a lot, but just as a parting message for people who will be seeing this in future, what message do you have for the young Muslims striving to balance faith, culture, and professional aspirations in a rapidly changing world, most especially not to see Islam as a barrier. If I have a magic wand, Mustafa, I would just make everybody see like you can be the best version of yourself without living Islam. And you are a typical example of such. Like you're very like we see in the mosque all the time, cool, calm, collected, very focused and all that. And then your Islam is still kind of intact. Of course, we're human beings. We'll move left and right sometimes, but at least not living the fold of Islam, thinking Islam is a barrier. That is a personal concern that I would have for youngsters completely abandoning Islam because they have things they're chasing that they feel Islam is a barrier. What advice would you have for such youngsters?
I think it starts maybe from the parents, because I think part of what helped me is the people I was exposed to. So I was fortunate to be exposed to many kind of religious people in the sense that they really wanted to be Muslim, they were proud of it, and they enjoyed the practice of Islam. So I was fortunate in that sense. Also, maybe this is me personally, but I enjoyed learning, watching Islamic lectures or debates or reading things and learning myself. And so I think these things help you because a lot of times, if you don't know a lot about something, it's hard to feel connected to that thing. And so, like I was saying with parents, I feel often it's just you go to the mosque or you just read the Quran. And I don't think it's really enough to combat what people see on the other side because you're exposed to a lot of other things, in school or in social media, especially. So I think it's important to actually build this knowledge base. You understand these things. You understand parts of Islam. You understand why we're doing things. Because as you get older and more independent, you'll have to answer these questions for yourself, like, why am I still doing this? And it's easier to answer that question if you already have the knowledge or you're already exposed to it. So I think it starts from there. And then also really back to, again, just understanding that if you don't choose Islam as your source of anchor and you choose something else, whatever you choose also will be, well, I think it's first to notice first you're choosing something else. You might not realize that you are, but it's a thing we all do. So something will be your main goal or main pursuit or main desire. And in choosing this other thing, realizing that it changes and it's imperfect. And also, once you attain it, you probably won't be very happy and you'll just want more afterward. And so I think it's better to choose something stable, something but also having the knowledge is important. So from a young age, I think it's important to build up this knowledge and really understand Islam, not just as a surah and the prayers, but also like, who important people are and why we do what we do.
It's really been nice and pleasurable talking to you as always. We've spoken for over an hour, and that tells you when conversation is really going good. You barely
Yes.
take note of the time. So thank you so much, Mustafa, for spending this time with us and sharing your experience and giving very valuable advice. I hope I accept this from us as an active ibadah and, make it impactful to whoever that's going to be seeing this or listening to this at some stage in the future. So thank you so much once again for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking about it, also reflecting and trying to remember these things that are important and some of these things why I'm doing them, because I think sometimes they're in the back of our mind, but we forget actually. So it was very helpful for me too. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So, guys, until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.